good afternoon. This is Pam Scott, and I'm the Director of Client Services with Oasis Solutions, and I will be conducting the webinar this afternoon. Today we are going to talk about backup strategies, the importance of doing consistent backups, as well as talking about antivirus software and some of the challenges that may be presented in your Sage 100 using antivirus software. So during the presentation, your phone line is going to be muted. However, if you have a question, I want you to feel free to ask. So there's a question section in your GoToWebinar, so you can type in questions, and I will answer those throughout the presentation. If we have a lot of questions, which we're anticipating today, if I can't get to all of the questions, I will follow up with you after the webinar and provide answers to those questions. So again, thank you for joining us today, and we're going to go ahead and get started. So we're going to start with actually another PowerPoint presentation, but everything will not be PowerPoint based. I will be showing you some things within Sage 100. But what we're going to talk about first is backups and recovery. And the main reason why we have this webinar once or twice a year, it's also a subject at each of our user group meetings throughout the year, is that there are more and more issues with either cyber attacks, viruses, the ransomware. We've had several clients in the past couple of years have some serious issues with being infected by ransomware. And in many of those instances, the clients did not have a good backup. And in all of those instances, the clients assumed they had a good backup, but when tragedy struck and they needed to do a restore, they found that either the backup wasn't working at all, the last backup was 3 or 4 months old, or possibly they were just getting incremental backups and not backing up everything that was needed. So we really want to talk to you about the importance of not only backing up your data, but also having a process in place so that you can test and make sure that your backups are actually working. So what we want to talk about is we believe that you should back up every day, and you want to back up all of your files and folders that are related to your Sage 100. For those of you that have been on the product for a while, you know that it used to be called Mass 90 or Mass 200, and actually when you do the install of the product now, the data folder, one level of that subfolder is still called Mass 90. So everything, all the files and folders that below this Mass 90 folder need to be backed up on a regular basis. Everything that's within that Mass 90 folder, that includes all of your program files. It includes your reports, your custom forms, all of your company data, your system files. The system files would include your user maintenance, your role maintenance, all those types of things. So the ultimate goal is, heaven forbid, you have a situation, is that when you restore, all of your data, all of your files, your forms, your reports are going to be restored, and you're not going to have the need to recreate anything, redo transactions, that type of thing. A lot of people do incremental backups, meaning that they only back up each night what changed during that day. But when you need to restore, when you need to do a restore, most of the time you need to restore everything. So for instance, with ransomware, it affects all different files on your server in no particular order, and there's really no way to know which of those files it's going to hit. So because of the way Sage 100, because of the way the modules are integrated, you don't want to just restore part of your GL or part of your AP. You want to restore everything so that you can make sure that all the links there are there between all of the modules, and that that just basically everything is back in place. So if you find that your IT folks are doing incremental backups, please talk to them and try to encourage them into doing full backups of your system. Again, as I mentioned earlier, that we do recommend that you do it nightly, and also don't assume that your backup system is working, because in many cases it is not working. In addition to the Mass 90 folder and all the folders that reside below that, you also need to take into consideration other areas in Sage that have paths where you can store forms or PDFs, that type of thing. All of those also need to be backed up. And I'm actually going to go into Sage here in just a little bit and show you the different places where you possibly can have a data location or a path set up. So you want to make sure that you look at those, and wherever that is pointing, that is also getting backed up. So it would be things like your paperless Office documents. If you have alternate directories in Sage 100 Premium, it stores the system and company data in a Microsoft Excel database, so you want to make sure that database is being backed up, and several other areas. So again, we'll spend a little bit more time, and we're going to actually go module by module and show you where to look so that you can make a note. You also want to make sure that you are backing up any other products that are integrated with your Sage. For instance, if you use BizNet for custom financials, you want to make sure your BizNet program files and data files are being backed up. If you use Sage HRMS, Sage CRM, the fixed assets product, Sage 100 Alerts or Knowledge Sync, just any add-ons that you may have that work in conjunction with your Sage, you want to make sure that all of those are being backed up as well. So getting a good backup is, part of the process, but also having a good strategy for restoration is a huge piece of the process. So we encourage you to work with your IT support to create a sound recovery strategy, and that literally would be just having a mock disaster, so to speak. Okay, we've lost everything in our Sage. What are our steps? And then actually having them restore to a different location from the backup and making sure that they actually can restore it, and seeing if everything is there. We do recommend that you do a rolling 7 days of a full backup. So depending on how you are doing those backups, obviously there's various ways. You can do tape drives, you can do mirror drives. It's recommended that at least one of your backup methods be an off-site backup, or it's something that you can take with you off-site. So for instance, if your server is set up so that it does a backup to another server in your location every night, or it's kind of a mirror image that's doing that snapshot, should something happen where there's a fire your sprinkler system goes off, something happens to that equipment, then you're not going to be able to do that restore. So it's always good to at least have something off-site. For us, we have two backup systems. We have one that's a little more manual, and then we also have have it back up to the cloud as well. But back before we had the cloud solution, when we were backing up nightly, and you remember trading out the tapes and so forth, literally someone took that with them every night off site, so that should something happen to the office, that we did have a copy of our backup off site. When you are backing up Sage, you need to make sure that everybody is logged out of the system. Or it may lock files, and those particular files would not be backed up. It would skip over those. So everyone should be logged out. If you run into issues where you have so much data and your backup takes such a long amount of time that you can't have everyone out for that entire time, then maybe touch base with our support team, and we can provide you with some additional options or suggestions based on your individual need. So again, we talked a little bit about the different products that you need to think about in making sure that you are backing up. Again, make no assumptions about the viability of your backup. Validate by testing your plan for restoration and actually doing that restore. Come up with a plan and then actually implement that plan. Look for flaws, look for holes in your plan, and get it solidified, and start thinking about that now versus when you have a major issue, because at that point then it's a little bit too late if you discover that your backup isn't working. So with that, I just have one little bit of information here about hosting your Sage or your Sage 100 Cloud product. We are finding that more and more clients are wanting to not have the cost of maintaining a server on site. So, they may want to cut cost from having, an IT employee, or maybe, limiting the number of FTEs they have in the IT department. They may want the IT folks to focus more on development in other areas of the business, and not necessarily just making sure that your Sage 100 is stable and is getting backed up every night. So they may have other priorities for that IT team, in addition to just watching out for Sage. So it really depends on your company and their strategies and their priorities. So with that, we are having more and more clients decide to actually host their Sage 100. And that basically is that instead of the server residing at your office or at one of your physical corporate offices, that server resides at a hosted facility, and that you access your Sage remotely. So that facility is, the hosting site is responsible for backups, recovery strategy, testing and making sure that they can recover, having all of those redundancies in place so that if there is some type of catastrophic failure, that they can very quickly get you back up online with your Sage. So if that's something that you're thinking about, or maybe within the next year that you're going to have to replace your server, once you get the cost of replacing that server and what's involved, if you think you would like some information on hosting, just give us a call. Here at Oasis, we can provide you with options, and we can provide you with pricing. Again, it's not something that you have to do, but it seems like more people are looking at spending their employee resources elsewhere other than managing that type of thing. So again, if you have an interest, just let us know about the hosting, and we'll be glad to provide you with demos, pricing to do that. All right. So what I'm going to do real quick is I'm just going to look and see if there are any questions, and there are no questions. So if you do have questions about anything that we've talked about regarding the backup strategy, let me know. And also, if you would like information on what we recommend that you back up, also let me know. So what we're going to do at the moment, instead of moving to the next section to talk about antivirus, I'm actually going to take you into Sage. And we're going to go through the various modules and screens where you may have a different path set up that you want to make sure is included in your backup strategy. So what we're going to do first is we're going to actually start in the Library Master module. So under Library Master, I'm going to go to Main, and I'm going to go into Company Maintenance. So as most of you know, this is where all of your companies are set up and where they reside. And if you're on Sage 100 Standard or Advanced, this is applicable. In the premium version, the data, as we mentioned earlier, is stored on the SQL database. But on the standard and advanced versions, which is what the majority of our clients run, if you're in Company Maintenance, select the company code and then go to the Preferences tab. And this will actually show you where your data is located. And if you're on a server, it's actually going to show you the path of the server. And then also, you may have your payroll data stored somewhere different. So your Sage data and the main directory may be on your server, but for privacy purposes, you may actually have the payroll data stored on your local drive. So you want to take a look, and wherever this is pointing, you want to make sure that that is included in the backup. In the scenario that we talked about earlier, that it needed to be at the Mass 90 folder, we would be fine. I have a local install of my Sage, and that's why it's pointing to my C drive. And then what I can easily do, if I go up and click the right arrow to do next, I can scroll through each of my companies that I have set up that they are all pointing to the same path. And if they're not, just make a note of that. So that's the first place that you want to look, is in the Company Maintenance. The next place that you want to check is you want to go into Paperless Office. And you want to, if you're utilizing Paperless, you want to see where those PDFs are being stored. So in Paperless Office, I would just go through each maintenance screen. So you're just going to click on this first one, Journal and Register Maintenance. And if you have anything set up, you will be indicated with this flashlight. So you can see I don't have anything set up here, but if I did, you would see all of the options. You would select it, and then this is going to be the path of where it's located. So let me just set one up real quick so you can see what it would look like. I'll just make up a place. So here's the path, and I'm just going to accept that. So if I exit out and I go back in and I click on my flashlight, you'll see the one that I have set up. I'm going to double click on it, and then it's going to show me where the PDFs are being stored. Now the PDFs can be stored. I selected all companies, but when I do a lookup, you could actually have the PDFs for different companies being stored in different places, or even drill it down even further on a document-by-document basis. So if you click on the little flashlight, and then you look at anything that's listed on this menu, and then make a note of that PDF directory. So you're going to look at your journals and registers. You're going to do the same thing with your period end reports by looking at the flashlight. Your report maintenance as well, got the PDF directory. Your form maintenance, and then the electronic delivery message does not have a pass in it, so you don't have to worry about that. But the journals and register, period end, report maintenance, and form maintenance. So you want to check each of those, determine where those PDFs are being stored, and make sure that those are included in your backup strategy as well. Okay, the next place that we're going to look is we're going to move down to the accounts payable module. And if you are using ACH, the ACH feature within the accounts payable module, when you create those ACH files, it's actually creating that file and then saving it somewhere. So in accounts payable, you're going to go to Setup. You're going to go to AP Options. You're going to go to the ACH tab, and then this is the path that you want to make a note of. And this path could be different on a company-by-company basis. So, and the same for paperless. So in Library Master, when we're looking at company maintenance, we can view the information for all of the companies. When we are looking at paperless, it could be different on a company-by-company basis. And looking at the ACH information could definitely be different on a company-by-company basis. So you need to look at the whole picture as well. So with your AP, you have the ACH option. Also, if you do direct deposit in payroll, we're going to go to our setup. And it's just taking a few minutes here to pop up. But you also will have a path under the direct deposit as to where you want that information stored as well. Okay, oops. So you have that in payroll. In Visual Integrator, if you use, hold on just a second, let me let that finish. If you're using the Visual Integrator module to import or export data in and out of Sage, if you go into either your import, job maintenance, or export, and I'm not actually going to create one, but I'll just start one here. When you get into the maintenance screen, you also can have your import file, or if you're doing an export job, your export file, and have a path listed there for that file as well. And again, this would vary on a import or export basis by basis, because obviously the file names are going to be different depending on if you're doing an import or an export. Okay, so that was in Visual Integrator. In inventory management, if you are putting images of your items in inventory management, so I pulled up an inventory item, I went to the Additional tab, and if I have an image associated with this item, this is where it's browsing out to where that image is stored. So you also want to make sure if they're stored somewhere else that you do not want to lose all of those images if you have to restore your Sage 100. Okay, and then give you an option. We'll just do this while we're in inventory. But if you are familiar with the memo maintenance feature, where you can set up memos in various modules, you can set them up in the general ledger. You have them, some of the main areas is vendor maintenance, customer maintenance, item maintenance. You can drill down to invoice level, sales order level, but you have this little icon wherever there's a memo feature. And you have the ability to attach a document to a memo. So again, wherever these attachments are stored, you want to make sure you're backing that up as well. Okay? And if anybody has any questions about what I'm going through here, so just go ahead and submit the question. And then the last area that has an option for the path is in the barcode module. And I do not have the barcode module implemented, but I do have a screenshot of what it looks like. So in the barcode module, if you go to barcode options and go to the files tab, here's another area where you have possible paths for attachments that you need to make sure that you're backing up. So again, if anybody has any questions about that, let me know. But I did want to go through and show you those areas within Sage. So just because you're backing up the quote Mass 90 folder does not mean by any stretch of the imagination that you are actually backing up everything you need to back up. By the same token, if you are storing, let's say, those payroll files on your local drive, then you need to make sure you're also backing up your individual laptop or your individual workstation. So sometimes we back up our server, but then we don't think about our individual workstations where maybe we're saving information on our C drive, because should something happen there, then again, we aren't able to restore. And I do know that a lot of times when a client is hit by that crypto virus, it normally starts from a workstation and then spreads to the server, or that's what we have seen, where someone clicks on, an attachment or something of that nature, and then the workstation becomes infected, and then it migrates to the server. So just you need to think about your overall backup strategy regardless, but think about your Sage 100. What would happen tomorrow if you came in and all of that information was gone? How devastating would that be to your business? You don't know what clients owe you. You don't know what payables are due. All of that information is gone. So think about how devastating that can be to your business. Think about how much time it would take to try to even get a system back that you can somewhat function in. I will also tell you that a couple of clients that did not have backups ended up paying the ransom, but it still did not unlock all of the files. So while they were able to make a little progress, there were still data files that they lost and were not able to recover. So paying the ransom is not a guarantee that your system is going to work the way that it did before, or that all of the data is going to be back. And trying to rebuild and recover if you don't have a backup can be very, very costly. So we're going to move now from the backup discussion to the talk about antivirus. So if you do have any questions, please pass those along. And let me get out of this for a second. And we're going to go back here. Okay. So we're going to talk now again about, that's not what I meant to do. There we go. So now we're going to talk about antivirus. And the only time we really seem to get into discussions about antivirus, it's more reactive than it is proactive with customers, because if you're running an antivirus software and everything is running just fine, then there's really no reason to make any changes. But when a client starts having performance issues and their system starts running really slow, whether it be everyone's workstation is really slow, or maybe just one particular workstation has started running extremely slow, maybe the server is slow. One of the first things that we're going to talk to you about is, are you running antivirus software, which you should be? Have you changed your antivirus software recently? Maybe there's been an update to the software, but running antivirus software can cause the system to have a slow performance, and sometimes a very slow performance. And if you think about, depending on how the AV is set up, it could be when I try to open customer maintenance on my system, it's running a scan there. As it goes out to the server to grab the file, it's running a scan there. So all that scanning going on is just slowing things down. You also can, sometimes we'll see where people will get error messages, either that a file cannot be found, or they'll get a locked file message, and that's because they're trying to access the file, but the antivirus is stopping it and grabbing it to do a scan before it releases it. So it's causing more issues. So if you start experiencing issues, there's a couple of things that we would recommend. The first would be a very, very short-term suggestion is, turn off the antivirus on the workstation and the server for 10 minutes, do some testing, and is there a huge difference in the performance? If there is, then that truly is pointing to the antivirus. If it doesn't make a difference, then there could be something else going on. But you have to not just do it at the server level and not just do it at the workstation level, but you have to do it at both in order to really be able to troubleshoot it. So what we will suggest to you is that you set up some exclusions in your antivirus scanning so that it doesn't scan certain files that are mostly proprietary related to Sage. And down here at the bottom lists those file extensions that should be excluded from the scan. So if you're setting up those extensions at the workstation level and the server level, you should see a noticeable improvement in either the speed or the reduction if you're getting locked file errors. We obviously don't recommend that you completely disable antivirus, because that's just not what we want you to do, and it's certainly not what you or your IT folks are going to want to do. But we do have lots of instances where clients will do the exclusions, and then they're running fine. So, and typically we find that a lot of the antiviruses are affecting different, they're affecting different types of files versus these file extensions. So again, if you run into that issue, give our support team a call. We'll run through a variety of things and see if we can narrow down the antivirus. There are antivirus softwares that are more aggressive in what they do. There are some that Sage will recommend not using. There are also some free antivirus softwares that you may be using that have limited flexibility, so you can't, it doesn't give you the ability to do exclusions for file extensions. So if you're in that situation and we do narrow it down to it's the AV software causing the issue, then you either need to upgrade to a different type of AV software or come to some type of conclusion. This information that I listed here, there's a lot of words and a lot of information, but it literally are 2 paragraphs that I pulled off of the supported platform matrix. So you know that whenever you guys do an upgrade, we always send you what the hardware requirements are for your server, your workstations, and your operating system. And this is listed on that matrix talking about antivirus software. So it actually lists some of the file extensions to be excluded, but we have a longer list that we provide to you. And it also talks about that, having multiple instances of an antivirus software scanning can really cause performance issues. Using home or desktop versions of an AV software is not supported for business users, so therefore it's not supported by Sage. So just various things like that. We don't run into the issues that we used to with antivirus causing such performance issues, but that is, I'm going to say 90% of the time when there's a performance issue, it goes back and it is antivirus related. So I wanted to see if anyone has any questions about the antivirus software. And I'm not seeing anything yet. So I want to thank everyone for attending today. And if you take nothing away from today's session other than following up with your IT folks and finding out what the strategy is. And not only do we have one, but can we test it and make sure that it does work? Because none of us want to have you lose your system or be in a situation where it takes you weeks to recover from some catastrophic failure of your server or some type of a virus or ransomware issue. So thank you for attending. Again, this is Pam Scott. If you have follow-up questions that you didn't ask, please feel free to email me at pam@oasisky.com, and I will do my best to answer the questions. If you want to actually work with someone at Oasis to help you test out your strategy and your methodology for your backup, please give us a call, and we will be more than glad to work with you. So thank you, everyone, for your time today, and just let us know if there's anything that we can do to help. Thank you. Bye-bye.